You also were a deputy chief of police. Can you go into some of that background?
Sure. So when I was 5 years old, a police officer used to patrol my neighborhood, and he kind of became my idol. And so by age 9, I could tell you I wanted to be I always say that we have amazing people that intersect with incredible opportunity. And so what we've done at the Alliance is really
Now, are you mainly working with businesses, or can it be anything, like as far as leadership type skills?
So today I've had meetings with a Fortune 50 company down to someone who wants to start a mobile car washing business. We've had conversations about a 1.5 million square foot warehousing project and about a $4 billion data center. So we really work across the board, but our specialty is being able to
Talking a little bit more about like leadership and that type of thing. I know being in a law enforcement background and also as a state representative, I mean, would you agree? Like there's a lot of chaos, but things just don't seem to be, there's not a clear leadership or a defined leadership in a lot of these areas.
Here's the analogy I use. Convenience in the life. To be successful in the year 2025, you really need two things. That is very true, but it's always the responsibility of the communicator to speak in the language of
Welcome to Gold Media LLC. I'm Melissa Bell. Today joining me is TC Clements. He is a speaker, author, and a CEO, and he has a long background in public service and in leadership. So thank you so much for joining us today.
No, thanks for having me.
Now, today we want to talk about a little bit about leadership and just how it plays out today. It could be in our everyday life, in our personal lives, and in our professional lives. Can you start off by telling the audience a little bit about your background? Because you have quite a lot to talk about. You've come from a background with the state representative. You also were a deputy chief of police. Can you go into some of that background?
Sure. So when I was 5 years old, a police officer used to patrol my neighborhood, and he kind of became my idol. And so by age 9, I could tell you I wanted to be a chief one day. Pursued that path along with a number of other paths because just life happened. And very early on in my law enforcement experience, I realized something really quickly, and that was there was the formal chain of command, rank structure, sergeants, answer lieutenants, etc. But then there was the informal. And in my experience, informal often was more profound, more impactful. Really major decisions tended to flow as much through that informal channel and unspoken as the formal. So I started to look at it and figure out why was that and how could people best use it as opposed to abuse it. And that's where it kind of began. So from law enforcement, I then moved on in life, became an entrepreneur. Typically, you just can't make enough money as a police officer when I started, so you had to learn a side hustle. From there, I stepped out of law enforcement due to a medical issue with my father, jumped into a corporation, became COO of that corporation, doubled it in size. We went from 2 million to 4 million in 2 years. Also continued my entrepreneurial endeavors, jumped back in law enforcement. I jokingly tell people that I've done everything other than walk a canine or fly the helicopter. And so I've had kind of a lot of experience within that genre, but have a love for public service. So I became a local council person. We call them trustee here in the state of Michigan. Really enjoyed serving my neighbors. So I wanted to do it at a state level. I ran, became a state representative, thoroughly enjoyed my time helping my neighbors, realized that long-term it was not going to be where my headspace was at. And along came an opportunity to become the CEO of this brand new organization. And we have formulated just a monster team and have done incredible things in Southeast Michigan.
And now can you tell us a little bit more about the organization, what you do and services and just everything that's been going on?
Sure. So the Monroe County Business Alliance is our old chamber, 70-year or 75-year history of chamber, and then the Business Development Corporation. So when you think large production facilities, manufacturing, warehousing coming to a community, economic development goes and secures that. It's kind of a competitive space. And so in our community, they decided to merge the two. So it became the Business Alliance. So we have traditional chamber services. We have economic development. We added an incubator and accelerator so that we could help entrepreneurs launch their business ideas and wrap them with accounting services, marketing services to give them the best chance to succeed. And we also have a community counter called gotomonroe.com, where any neighbor in the county of Monroe, Michigan can type on an event and everyone else can see it. It searches by geographic location, date, time, type of event. But the purpose of the alliance is to try to promote Monroe County from a business perspective. I always say that where we live, we have amazing people that intersect with incredible opportunity. And so what we've done at the Alliance is really embrace the people side. We put our partners first. The economics of our organization come a distant second, because I believe that if you take the effort, you are willing to walk a little bit further to meet someone halfway, and then you really care about their success, our success will take care of itself. And so we've really internalized that. Our team is built on that, and we're seeing just incredible success in the last year and a half.
Now, are you mainly working with businesses, or can it be organization? It's anything like as far as leadership type skills?
So today I've had meetings with a Fortune 50 company down to someone who wants to start a mobile car washing business. We've had conversations about a 1.5 million square foot warehousing project, and about a $4 billion data center. So we really work across the board. But our specialty is being able to create 2 points of connectivity. The first is from a company coming into our community to help them kind of walk the gauntlet of legislative issues and political issues through zoning, ordinance, stuff like that. The second is to connect them to existing businesses in our community so that there's that partnership that gets formed immediately. Most communities don't want you to just come and exist here. They want you to come and be a part of it. And by being that center hub to the wheel, if you will, we not only is it beneficial for the new business coming in to create those connections, it's obviously beneficial for the businesses who are here to pick up the additional business by the new companies joining us. So it really is a win-win for everybody.
And now, talking a little bit more about like leadership and that type of thing, I know being in a law enforcement background and also as a state representative, what have you seen? I mean, we're talking about like just even in like, the law enforcement field right now, we have a lack of leadership. I mean, would you agree? Like there's a lot of, looks like, I don't want to say chaos, but things just don't seem to be, there's not a clear leadership or a defined leadership in a lot of these areas. Do you feel that that's missing?
It absolutely is missing, and I wouldn't target law enforcement specifically.
Right.
I think that they're as prone to it as so many other things. Here's the analogy I use. Convenience in the last 30 years has made our life amazing. We have mobile banking. We can order groceries from our office. For most of us, our office is our living room, and so it's very convenient to live in our world. The problem is that convenience has had some byproducts which have subconsciously kind of crept in, and we're not focusing on them enough. And what I mean by that is that, now I don't have to write a paragraph for a speech coming up. I can give 7 words to, Chat GPT and it's done for me. That's lazy. Now, great tool used in the right circumstances, incredibly beneficial, but it fosters this quick cheat mentality. We go to ATM machines as opposed to dealing with people. We do self-checkout in the grocery store if we make it there at all. So because of these conveniences, we've lost the ability to connect with people. And that is so vital in the business world. If someone had said 50 years ago to business leaders, to be successful in the year 2025, you really need 2 things. You need customer service and you need timely delivery. Most people would have scoffed and said, no way, tech will be the answer. And it certainly isn't. Most people in the business community will tell you the 2 biggest hurdles they face are hiring and retaining good talent, and then providing the service that they know they need to in order to reassure their customer base. So in a world where kind of inches separate the winners and the losers, the difference is that leadership. It's the culture of the business that you're in. And can you manifest a culture that's so different that people talk about it, that people are drawn to it, that you stand out in a crowd? You think about it, 50 years ago, trying to get your message out was really difficult. You had the newspaper, you might be able to send a blanket fax. For all of those under 30, you'd have to go research what a fax machine is. But the reality is today, the issue is not the communication. It's breaking through the white noise of the communication because it's everywhere. And how do you distance yourself? So again, everything is those subtlety of inches. And what can you do to take a great group and make them exceptional, or a good group and make them better?
And I know you mentioned, like before we got on the call, even when you are just different positions that you've held, there's some like things that you've done with your team that is kind of unique, like different types of ways that you've gotten them to connect or kind of, take on, more of a leadership role.
Yes, but I think before you get to the staff, leaders really have to be introspective, because part of the laziness that I talked about it, and when I say that, I'm not poking fun. I'm not trying to make somebody feel bad about who they are. I'm just wanting them to be aware of the circumstances, kind of the climate they're operating in. But before I can be the leader that my team needs me to be, I got to be the leader that understands myself. I have to be able to realize that I can work within policy, I can work within the confines of HR, but I don't have to be this automated response that everybody's the same all the time for every reason. I have to connect with my different teammates and understand what their trigger points are, what their fears are, what they're exceptional at, what they struggle with. And if I'm not prepared to invest that time to learn that, and then to feed them where they need to be fed, to pull back on the reins maybe where they're running too fast, it takes work. But work is what leadership is. Sitting back and just saying, I'm going to treat everybody the same and just hope that it works out, that's average leadership. And so that's what I've seen is people really aren't willing to spend the time and the energy to reach their employees, because that requires that introspection. It requires figuring out your own baggage, your own vulnerabilities, your own fears. Because if I'm leading from a standpoint of my fear, then I'm not likely doing what's best for the organization. And I'm absolutely not doing, in 9 times out of 10, what's best for the employee. So what I have to do is be able to remove that, acknowledge that it exists, use the experience and the lessons gained, but also be able to compartmentalize it, put it in a box, and say, wait a minute, this isn't relevant. Let me give you an example real quick of how this kind of creeps into society. We all love to say the phrase, think outside the box, right? Everybody wants to think outside the box because we've said if you're outside the box, you're in the promised land. I would challenge you that the worst thing you can do is think outside the box. What you should do is think as if there is no box. Because the moment you recognize that a box even exists, you're tethered to it. There's a spatial relationship. You're only willing to go so far from the box before you're in no man's land, or your own comfort level is exceeded. And so that box, even though you're not in it, and you're certainly thinking outside of it, is still directly impacting how you're handling business. Whereas if you flip the script and go, there is no box. Now, doesn't mean that any idea that hits the table is going to be done. It just means that it's worth consideration. It frees you up to see differently, to think differently, and ultimately that freedom allows you to walk in places where a lot of other people wouldn't go because they're buying the script that they've been told their whole life.
That makes sense, definitely. And you're seeing this, like this helps in every aspect of your life. I mean, not just probably professionally, because this also be applied in your...
This connects with your children. It connects with your spouse. It's with your peers. What it really is doing is you're improving yourself to the point where you're willing to take the extra step to communicate and connect with those around you. We always talk about communication, that it's more nonverbal than it is verbal. That is very true, but it's always the responsibility of the communicator to speak in the language of the listener. And if you're missing and you're not laying out the details where they can understand it, then you're doing a disservice. And that's, again, falls into that little trap and lane of laziness that we're talking about. It was never intended. No one's actually wanting to do it. No one wakes up in the morning and says, I want to be inconsiderate and lazy. But it happens based on creep in society.
Yeah, and communications. I wonder, have you seen any more changes since we went through this whole COVID and everything? Everybody kind of went into that lockdown mode where they weren't in person. You weren't really dealing with people in person like you did before. I wonder, do you feel that has led a little bit towards that not being able to communicate as effectively?
100%. I'm not a psychologist, but I would tell you that people got incredibly frustrated depending on where you are on the political spectrum. They felt incredibly isolated. People began to be a little bit more free with their words in a digital space. And we've never come back from that. I think that we're about as uncivil and as unfriendly and unkind when in a lot of our digital communications, particularly on social media, not necessarily work related. And that's not a good thing, because what we do is we're willing to just fire off these messages and we don't think about the consequences of what they're being said. Your point may be incredibly valid, but if you've so offended the listener that they're not digesting it, they're not pondering it or stewing on it, you've done no good other than just irritate someone. So I think it kind of goes back to the old adage that, you're going to get more people with honey than you are with vinegar. And it's crazy again, but we're in such a technologically advanced age, but these idioms that we've heard our whole life are more true now than ever.
And I know you just authored a book. Did you recently release one?
I did. It's titled The Legacy of Leadership. It's the small things. Ironically, I never intended to write a book. It started off, I'm a little bit older and my children are young. And so I started off writing a letter to them, trying to rationalize my fierce, I'll poke your eye out to win competitiveness with my absolute commitment to try to be humble and kind and civil and to protect those that can't protect themselves, because there really is a duality there. And so I wanted to be able to leave for them in writing how I juxtapose those two kind of ends of the spectrum. That culminated in a series of things that some people looked at and said, hey, these really are great leadership lessons. And so I started to apply them to some trainings we were having, kept working on it and developing it. And so it's a book for leadership. Doesn't matter whether you're entry level or whether you've been C-suite for 10 years. It's practical examples of how things like we've discussed today creep into our regular everyday life. And there's so many of them. And with just little adjustments, even just the awareness, thinking about don't think outside the box, think as if there is no box. That seems so simple, but if you ponder that for a couple of minutes, an hour or so, it really does begin to affect the way you can change. And so I wrote this book, hoping that it would help people, and has led to some opportunities to do podcasts like yours. Thank you again for having me on. And I'm also hoping to be able to do some speaking engagements to help. Again, my whole life has been in service of others, and anything I can do to try to improve and to push people towards excellence, I'm all in.
And now this would be like, will you speak on like a national level? You want to keep it more localized?
Well, listen, I would love to think that somebody would want to fly me across the country to give a speech, but I think local is probably pretty realistic right now, and then we'll see where it goes. One of the things when you've lived these experiences and they are who you are, you don't know until you've done it a little bit more how it resonates with people. When I was an investigator, one of the phrases I used to use was the worst type of people are people who don't know that they don't know. And this is a case where I don't know completely how well all the things that I've applied in the opportunities in my life will resonate with other people. So far, the reviews of the books are really good. The couple of opportunities I've had to speak have gone really well. And it seems to be hitting with people, which makes me feel good. It makes me feel like it was definitely worth the time, because now I've left it for my children, but it's something that I can pass on, and hopefully some other people will benefit and we'll expand on it.
Well, if more people, if they wanted information on the book, your company, speaking engagements, what would be the best way to find you?
Probably the best way would be to go to the website, which is tcclements.net. Clements is spelled CLEMENTS.net. There's information on the book itself, on a little bit more about myself, my bio, and opportunities. I always tell people, please give me a shout. The fact of the matter is I'm more interested in spreading the word on what this does and how it improves cultures. I've seen it as a legislator. I've seen it as a police officer. I've seen it in multiple experiences as a CEO. I consult with businesses, weekly here in our office, and we're watching it work for them. And so we know it's a proven strategy if someone's willing to embrace it and say, yeah, I'll do it. And the best part about it is it doesn't require you buy a course. It doesn't require attending a seminar. It simply requires a little bit of thought and a little bit of willingness to think about who you are and how you can better connect. And with just a little bit of hand holding, it's a short book, 130-ish pages. No chapters more than 5 or 6 pages, so super easy to digest. but it gets right to the heart of things. It's not a real philosophical, pseudo leadership book. It's brass tacks, get in there and get it done type of book.
Okay, I definitely want to check that out. Can you find it on Amazon or on the website? Okay.
It is. It's on Amazon, hardback, paperback, and it's also available for Kindle.
Okay, wonderful. Well, I really appreciate you being with us. I have one question. We always like to have the guest leave the audience with a question that would have them like thinking about something, philosophical or whatever, but it's for the gold book. So if you have a question you can leave the audience with, that'd be great.
Ooh.
So you just
In
have,
a
you just
world where
basically,
you can be, I would say this, in a world where you could be anything, what would the one word be that you want on your headstone? In a world where Sally could be anything, Sally was X.
okay, very nice. Perfect. Well, thank you very much. That's definitely, yeah, that's something to think about.
Well, thank you very much for having me on. It's an honor to do it, and I've loved watching some of your other podcasts and seeing some of your guests. So it's a real treat to have the opportunity. Thank you.
Well, thank you again.